Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my epic rant on the 2009 incompetent pile of incoherence that is I Am Here Now. Now, before I go any further trying to wrap my head around this unbelievably awful movie, I would like to give a special shout out to Thomas for requesting this video. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both will be in the video description down below, and I will try to get your request as soon as I possibly can. So I am here, dot, 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 now is another masterpiece of cinema from Neil Breen. He directed this one as well as wrote it and starred in it because, of course, that's what Neil Breen does in all of his movies because he thinks he's supremely talented. But he's anything but. The direction in this is really inept. Other than maybe a wide shot in the desert, the direction is really bad. The framing sucks. The usage of pans and zooms is on par with what you would see in a below average project for a community college video production class. And he just doesn't really know how to shoot a film in a way that makes it look cinematic, that makes it look uh, like it's not made on a budget of 2 pennies and a used wad of chewing gum. Like, he doesn't know how to do any of that stuff. And to make matters worse, he's so inexperienced and so woefully bad at what he's doing. He will insert multiple scenes in his film that have no dialogue. There are people walking up the stairs, people standing around talking to one another, and he doesn't have them mic'd, so you can't hear anything that they're saying, and the camera is focused on them as if you're supposed to actually pay attention to this scene and to what these people are saying, and you can't hear anything. And there's a lot of other shots that are just randomly thrown in there. There are attempts to try to do some different sort of camera angles, but it's on par with the crap that I did for my college class. And if you're on my level of directing, which is not good at all, you're a bad director. You should just quit and stop. Just stop directing because it's not for you. But Neil Breen, he did multiple more movies after this. This was his second film after Double Down. So yeah, the direction in this is not dynamic. It's not interesting. It's inherently and incredibly flawed to its core. It's just a really ineptly bad movie from a directing standpoint, like the majority of Neil Breen's films in his filmography. The script by Neil Breen is equally as inept and equally as poor, if not even more so, because there is barely any plot to speak of, or any coherence, or anything resembling a sensible or competent line of thought. It's just a bunch of word salad, bullshit, and nonsense about some supreme being that created humans who's disappointed in us. Yeah, I mean, I would be disappointed in us too if Neil Breen is somebody who's creating supposedly profound pieces of entertainment. But that's a different argument altogether. But yeah, this supreme being, also played by Neil Breen, which of course it uh, is upset at us because we are not living up to our full potential, which is nothing new. That's something that's been done a million times in other science fiction films and stories over the years. And he just wanders around Las Vegas and takes out some people now and then when it's convenient to him, and stops this ring of evildoers and crucifies them on the cross and then fucks off back to outer space. That's basically all that happens in I Am Here Now. The supreme Breeing also fucks some lady too in one scene. But other than that, no, there's really not much of anything that really happens. Oh, he helps this old guy see the Las Vegas sign and then makes him young again and makes it so he can walk and he's no longer in a wheelchair, but then also makes it so he has to awkwardly be with this random woman. And the random woman has no choice in the matter either. The Supreme Breeing is just like, hey, you are now going to be with her, and woman, you're gonna be with him now. What? I don't have a say in this? No. You're gonna live together now and you're gonna have babies, you're gonna be happy. But I don't even know this guy. The older guy could be like, "Oh, thank you for making me young again and making it so I could walk again, but I don't know this woman. Why do I have to be with her?" And there's just a lot of stuff that's just complete utter nonsense. Like, why is this supreme being also part machine? Why does he show up in the desert with crucifixion wounds as if I guess he's supposed to be Jesus? And if he is, why is he crucifying people? I would think he wouldn't want to do that considering what was done to him. Um But yeah, why is he like part machine? He's got like computer parts for some reason. Neil Breen decided, hey, I got a laptop that bit the dust and I can't use it for my movies anymore. I guess I'll just repurpose the parts and I'll just tape them to my body, and then that'll show that I'm a supreme being because I have random computer parts taped on me. And I'm like, okay, it's part machine, but that's never explained and never really mentioned or in any sort of depth or detail. The supreme beings talking about, preserving nature, and there's some really shoehorned, forced message about solar power and solar energy that's thrown into this script that makes just about as much sense as you think it does. And yeah, the stuff with the group of evildoers, which might as well be a bunch of mustache twirling bad guys straight out of a Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon, or the supervillains in, what was it, the League of Supervillains or some other shit from Super Friends with like Lex Luthor and Solomon Grundy. Like, it might as well be those people again with this group of bad guys, or just random group of politicians and bankers and gang members for some reason. There's other little subplots that are going on with these two twin sisters that aren't twins at all, uh, who wind up getting, I guess, roped into doing something with this gang of evildoers, and then they wind up becoming, I guess, stuck with them. And one of the sisters gets addicted to drugs. And there's one guy who's a member of the gang of what might as well be eco terrorists straight out of Captain Planet, talking about how, if you cross me, something really bad is going to happen to you, and something violent. And then it like cuts to some guy getting his ear cut off, and other body parts and they're being cut off and thrown into the desert. And I'm like, okay, thrown into the desert. So do they do that in the same desert that uh, Neil Breen's Supreme Being was in? And if that's the case, why? Why are you driving all the way out to the freaking desert in Death Valley to do all this shit? Like, I don't know. Just like I don't know why there's a bunch of fucking baby heads in the desert. Like, there are numerous shots of Neil Breen as the Supreme Being walking around in the desert, and there's baby doll heads just sitting there on the ground, and they're never explained what their purpose is or why they are even there in the fucking first place. This Supreme Being is also like not human. So you see other shots every now and then throughout the movie, and throughout the story, what little of it that there is, where he looks like Eddie from Iron Maiden, the mascot for Iron Maiden. I'm like, what the hell is Eddie doing here? Like, doesn't he have a show to be at? Why is he here in the middle of the fucking desert? Why is Eddie banging this random chick? And why am I not hearing Bruce Dickinson? Why am I not seeing Iron Maiden alongside with Eddie? Like, man, Eddie really fell onto some hard times. um, you're like, why is any of that happening? And the whole scenes where this supreme being will go around and just like, oh hey, these guys are doing bad and doing evil. I'm gonna blind them. Like this one guy who randomly decides to knock this guy over in his wheelchair because the guy in the wheelchair bumped into him. And so the Supreme Being, after that happens, decides the proper way to handle that is to blind this guy. Like, not give him, a lecture, not try to teach him the error of his ways. Nah, just make his eyes bleed out of his head. This is the same thing with these, like, gangsters, these gang members who pull up and threaten violence against the Supreme Being with their clearly painted airsoft guns. And he blinds them too. Then there's this whole scene involving the group of eco terrorists and another gang member. And there's this other guy who I guess is an undercover cop now. Is getting tortured and beat up by these terrorists. And this supreme being is watching this happen, like literally like maybe like 10 feet away, like up high somewhere. He's literally watching it happen. And this poor undercover cop, he's like getting his finger cut off and getting punched in the face repeatedly. And then finally this supreme being decides to step in and freezes everybody and stops them and frees him and frees the other girl that he banged earlier. And he takes a liking to her for some reason, as if like she represents some kind of hope for humanity and for a better future, and I have no idea why. Just because she has angel wings tattooed on her back, that doesn't mean she's actually an angel. And there's just so much about this that's just random and doesn't really have much of a connection to anything. There's these different characters who work for a company that's trying to do stuff with solar power, and they all get fired because in the economy right now and all this other stuff, we can't afford to keep you. And like there's random shots of wind turbines, and I this is the kind of movie you're like sitting down and you're watching and you're just like, what? What? What the fuck? Like, that's really like, that's the reaction. Why is any of this happening? And why should I care? Why is there clearly an obvious fake toy spider that's shown multiple times in this movie. Why does Neil Breen use the same screaming sound effect over and over again? Why did Neil Breen make this fucking movie? It's just a mystery. It's an absolute mystery. And it's also really preachy and pretentious, which makes it even more insufferable to sit through. It's a script that thinks it has something profound to say, but it really doesn't have much to say at all, except these generic platitudes about being better people and being better humans and doing your part to save the environment. I can get all of that in your average episode of Captain Planet, and I don't have to deal with any of this other nonsense and this bullshit. Having to see Neil Breen. Sorry, I couldn't say his last name because apparently it hurt my brain too much to say it. Neil Breen thinking he's a sex symbol, which he's absolutely not. And the stuff about crucifying these evildoers, and I'm like, okay, you crucified these guys. Are these really the only like evil bad guys who are corrupt and have power in the world? I don't buy that. Like there's only 6 people, and one of them is a random gang member who I guess is also a banker, which doesn't make any sense. Just like the entirety of this script, the being came down to earth and he saw these 2 drunk people in a truck and froze them, took their clothes and took their truck, and then goes to Vegas, and instead of gambling and having some fun, he decides to blind some people who he deems are bad, and then randomly will decide to help some people, but anyone else who's in danger or anyone else who might need a cure for some kind of illness, I guess they could fuck right off because the being doesn't know they exist. And if he did, it doesn't seem like he would give a shit. And then he randomly bangs some woman. And then decides to crucify these guys who are corrupt and evil in the most laughable way possible, and then just goes back to outer space. And that's I Am Here Now. Now, when it comes to the cast, I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. No one in here can act worth a shit. Uh, Especially not Neil Breen. Uh, or Joy Senn, who plays Amber, or Elizabeth Sekora plays Cindy. Um, like these 2 twins, like I swear they were just cast because they were in a porno or they were easy for Neil Breen to manipulate into being in this movie. The scenes with the twins is honestly kind of hard to watch in a lot of ways because it has this very like voyeuristic, like pervy sort of direction and just overall it and honestly looks like you're watching a porn and not a movie. If I want that, I'll just watch a porn and not I Am Here Now. Like even these like bad guys, they don't even have names. Corporate executive played by George Gingerelli, and Maurad Ford, who plays the gang leader, and Jason Perrin, who plays a politician, and Ron Schoenwolf, who plays a corporate lawyer, or even the guy like Herbert Allen, man in wheelchair. No name, just the man in wheelchair. Also, like the man in wheelchair, like why the hell was he making such a big deal about I want to see the Las Vegas sign before I die? It's like that's the thing you want to see the most before you die is the Las Vegas sign. I mean, different strokes, but I mean, that's some pretty low standards. That's a really lame thing. Like, oh, you have a Make a Wish thing for the Make a Wish Foundation, and you're like really sick, and they're like, yeah, I want to see the Las Vegas sign. Like, they would be like, "Really? Are you sure? Are you sure that that's what you want for your wish? Your dying wish is to see the Las Vegas sign?" But, I mean, this is Neil Breen we're talking about, so he probably thinks the Las Vegas sign is the most, amazing work of architecture that has ever been, created on the face of this earth, and that's why he gives it such great importance in, this film. But, yeah, no one in this cast can act and deliver anything remotely competent in terms of a performance or line delivery. They're just terribly bad. They can't even scream properly. Um, they're also laughing visibly on camera because they can't even take any of this seriously, and I don't blame them, but at the same time, I show some sense of professionalism for your craft or for what you want to do. Like if you're acting in something, it's something you want to do, right? I think you want to give it your best, even if it's a piece of shit movie like this. And then I'm not gonna mention it like the cinematography. Like, give me a break. It's just Neil Breen just deciding what time of day he wants to shoot the film uh in. Uh, it's not much more than that. The visual effects, laughable. Look like shit you would do in like Microsoft Paint. The production values are just just unbelievably cheap. I mean, there are so many scenes in this where you're like, are they really? Is that really what I'm looking at? That's supposed to be a gun? That's clearly just an airsoft gun painted gray. He clearly isn't a robot, he just has computer parts taped on him, and a lot of stock footage. You know your production values are really cheap when a good chunk of your movie is just stock footage that you just reuse over and over again. And speaking of reusing things over and over again, you have the music, which I don't know who did the music. Might as well be Neil Breen himself, right? Because I mean, look at this crew. Produced by Neil Breen, editing by Neil Breen, makeup by Neil Breen. What makeup? The cheap ass Halloween store mask you got on clearance of Spirit Halloween? That's not makeup. Art department, Neil Breen, props. Um, I guess you have music director, Neil Breen. So Neil Breen did the music too. So he did the music, which is just really bad. It sounds like the kind of shit you would hear in like a really dated CGI short film from the 90s where they're trying to show the universe or something. That's what it sounds like. Looks like. That's what it sounds like. It's like, "Oh man, is this in the mind's eye? Is this the gate?" Like oh no, it's I Am Here Now. It's not a movie from the 90s. It's a movie from 2009. Like, this guy is not talented enough to be a man of this many trades. He's not. He's not talented enough to be a composer. He's not talented enough to do the editing all by himself, but he technically did. And there was another guy, John Mastro Giacomo, who also helped edit this. But I mean, whether it was Neil Breen or this guy, they both sucked equally when it comes to their job editing this movie because this film features some really egregious and just unreal editing when it comes to just how incomprehensible and how incompetent the editing is from scene to scene. And I don't really know what else I can say about this. I mean, there really isn't much to this movie. It's like I said, it's like 10 to 15 minutes of content stretched out to an hour and 20 some minutes. Tons of stock footage of dolphins swimming away and this guy pushing money towards the camera and desert footage, which might as well just be B-roll. A plot that is, for the most part, paper thin or non existent, subplots that aren't needed and are just clearly there to pad the runtime, and a pretentious, generic message that's dull and boring that you've heard a million times about loving Mother Earth and your fellow man, and just don't be bad. Don't be bad humans. Well, Neil Breen should have taken his own advice and not made this movie. Because by making this movie, he's a bad human. Because he's doing a disservice to all of humanity. But anyway, thanks for watching my rant on I Am Here Now. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.